Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, a podcast where we are seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBron. We are here for another exciting episode, actually episode 20 for the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. And so we are excited. This is the second week of 2021. Last week we talked about resilience versus resolution. Before we get into the topic of this week, we definitely want to say thank you to all of our supporters.
Yes.
Those of you that are supporting us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll see that right below your screen. That's running across the YouTube channel. There is Unscripted Authentic Leadership. You can also follow us on Facebook at Unscripted Authentic Leadership, and our Instagram page is at Unscripted Leadership. Those of you that may not watch, but you stream our podcast, you can stream our podcast on any major podcast platform such as Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and Buzzsprout. So thank you to all of our supporters, and those of you that are watching us, please do us a favor and leave us a review. Whether that be via one of the streaming platforms or on our social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, and share and comment. We would greatly appreciate that. Let's get the ball rolling, and we'll you'll be glad that you shared that and share that information with someone else. They will be blessed by it as well. Well, before we get into the topic, bro, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Episode 20. Can't believe it. I mean, but I didn't realize it.
Yeah, 20 episodes, man. And so 20 down, 200 more plus to go. And so I'm excited, and I can't believe it's going by so fast. And we're going to keep going, get better each week. And we thank those of you that have been rolling with us and those of you that will join the Unscripted family. Hop along on this journey with us.
Special shout out to Lafayette's sister. Thanks for all your comments and dedication. I was talking about you the other day to him. And thank you.
Absolutely. I affectionately call her Buki. And so, Buki, thank you. I love it.
Perfect.
All right, man. Well, let's get into the topic. As I stated, last week we talked about the resolution versus resilience and how many of us will start the new year. Every year we make a list of things that we want to get accomplished throughout the year that we are in, only to get 2 to 3 months into the year and we have fallen off the wagon and we don't have the follow through to complete what we initially thought we desired to accomplish. And we talked about how it takes resilience, and that is the ability to recover quickly from a unknown or situation or something that you did not see coming. And so those of you that did not go watch that episode, please, I encourage you to go back and watch and listen to that because it ties into our topic this week. This week, we're going to be talking about using your creative edge. And I believe that everyone has a creative edge. Whether we know it or not, whether it's known or not to the individual or the group of individuals, we all have a creative edge. What I would say creative edge is, to me, creative edge is what separates you from the pack. It's what separates you from the normal or the status quo. It is that separation that you need to pivot and to create distance between yourself and those that are average or those that are mediocre. I thought about, in terms of sports, I thought about how a wide receiver needs to create separation in order to get open. In order for him to receive the football when he runs his route, in order for him to get away from his defender, he has to create separation. That is his creative edge. He understands the art of route running. He understands the art of creating separation between himself and his defender so he can receive the ball to obtain the end goal of scoring a touchdown. And I thought about that's exactly what every leader needs in your arsenal. You need to have the ability to create separation so you can obtain what you need to obtain so you can score in the area of your life that you desire to be successful in. Now, everyone's creative process, everyone's creative edge is different, because when you are creative, you have that ability to stimulate your imagination, to stimulate your inventiveness, and to come up with ideas that others cannot. My wife is a very, very creative person. She is very innovative. And so she is an education manager, she's a teacher. And so things like that, I believe, all teachers kind of have that creative process and edge to them. And so creativity comes easier to her. But there's more than one area of creativity. And so some people are creative when it comes to the arts. Some are creative when it comes to words. They're good at writing. They have a good writing process. Some are creative when it comes to math and other subjects or other areas of life. Some are creative in the areas of business. And so we may not all be creative in the same way. We may not all have the same creative edge, but what we all need is a creative process. It is the process that you use or that you implement on a day-to-day basis that gets you to that place that you're able to get your creativity stimulated. You're able to get your creativity, creative juices flowing, as people would say. And so I think when I look at my own creative process, I think for me, one of the things that gets my creative process going is reading. Getting in a quiet place, opening up a book, listening to podcasts, listening to different videos, reading, and really just tuning in. Another way for me, creative process, for a part of my creative process is listening to music. Depending on what mood I'm in, sometimes even while I'm reading, I may have some opera music going in the background, symphony, some Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And so, once the music gets going, it's almost like the picture's being painted in my mind. And so that starts to spark something in me. John and I, we were having lunch this week and discussing business. And as he was talking later on the next day, we had went to lunch the day before, and the next day, as I was driving in my car, I was thinking about our conversation, and something was sparked in me. My creativity started going based off something that he had said. And so it can be a conversation for someone else. It can be, like I said, it could be music. It could be whatever your outside influence is or whatever that is that gets your creativity sparked. It's important to understand that you know what your creative process is. John, I'm interested to hear what your creative process is, because everyone has a level of genius. And I believe that your level of genius, I want to hear. I think I know a few things, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know everything about your creative process, but I want to hear, man. What's your creative process? What do you do to get yourself to that place to where, hey, man, I'm kind of like in a place of I don't have the spark, I don't have the edge that I need to get me to that next place, and this is what I need to do to try to get that freshness renewed again.
So first of all, that's the first time I've heard that after our lunch you had an idea in the car. So whatever it is, I went in and I went 10%. And but no,
Oh.
it's very cool. But yeah. So my creative process is pretty simple. A lot of people think they're not creative.
Yeah.
Too many people tell me all the time, I'm just not a creative person. Yes,
Right.
we were all born with the ability to be creative. You just have to be intentional about it. and quit thinking that your creativity has to match up with how somebody else is creative. And
Right.
so, like, for example, I don't know a whole lot about photography. I tried playing in photography, and I realized pretty quick that the ideas that I have in photography, like trying to take pictures, just didn't ever seem to match up, right? Like some people just always have the right angle, always have the right, like they
Yeah.
understand that kind of thing. It just wasn't my deal, right? Thought it was cool, played with it for a while, not long enough to really be good at it. Wasn't that interested. It's okay. But guys, you have to take time to just allow your mind to do its job. It's called creative thinking, not creative knowing. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, you have to, your mind's job is to think, but it can't think if you don't create room for that. And so there's this concept called white space. It's essentially thinking about your calendar. It's identifying pockets of time when you have nothing. They call it white space, right? There's nothing written. Um, a lot of us fill our white space with noise. Sometimes it's the TV. A lot of times it's the TV.
Yeah.
You got to get used to just turning that thing off.
Yeah.
Do not take the TV out of your bedroom. First of all, it's a terrible idea. If somebody else is listening to have it, I'm sorry. It's just the truth. Research shows across the board that TVs in your room is just a bad idea. Phone apps. As soon as we get bored, we turn on our phone, right? And what a lot of people don't think about is the radio in the car. Now, I subscribe to the same thought as Lafayette, where I will play like classical type music in the
Mhm.
background because it gets my mind wandering in creative thought. It's different than when I'm listening to like country music or something and I'm just reciting what someone else is saying. There's a difference between allowing your mind to be creative and think and then filling your mind with noise as far as what somebody else is telling you to think, right?
Mhm.
If you're watching TV or you're listening to country music or rap or whatever you like, right?
Yeah.
They are giving you their thoughts. They're controlling your thoughts. Same with your kids. Pro tip with your kids: turn off the TV and see how creative they can be. I guarantee it. My kids every week come up with a new business idea. Do they execute them all? No, not really. But my daughter once came up with this idea of having a bath bomb business. She's 6. I helped her out a little bit. She did it, and 1 week later, maybe 10 days, she made $250. You know what I mean? I didn't like, I made a lot of bath bombs, but other than that, it was all her ideas, all these little things. She was just allowed to be creative. Like, no, you can't watch TV anymore. No, they get it sometimes, not a bad parent. But, anyways, so um, think about think about when you've already come up with all those with your current ideas, right? Without being intentional about your space, like with your quiet time, like I'm talking about. When do you right now come up with those ideas? When you're sleeping, right? You wake up every now and then, like, man, that was a good idea. When you're in the shower, how many times do you come up with a good idea in the shower, right? When you're going on a walk, right? All of those are times when you've quieted the noise around you and allowed yourself to think. In the car, if the radio happens to be off, is a great idea. So my creative process is literally just being intentional with my quiet time. Instead of just watching, and I love to watch sports and stuff like that. But if I have an idea or I kind of want to come up with an idea, I don't sit here and say, a lot of people will go, I want to make money from home. And then they'll be like, I just don't know how. No. So take your notepad. There's a tip right on the top. Make money from home ideas. And then sit somewhere and just write any thoughts that come to mind on the paper. Be careful not to filter out anything that you think is a bad idea or not possible or maybe something out of your comfort zone. Don't filter those out. Just write them down.
Yeah.
And then as you write, leave some space because often other thoughts that will domino from those first thoughts. And that's how you can get to something creative. A couple pro tips of what I do. I keep a notepad in my car and I keep a notepad by my bedside, on the side of my bed, because in the car I come up with an idea, but honestly, when you're driving, your thoughts can go off track real quick. And so I will write the idea down real quick. There's been times I've woken up with an idea and thought, I'll go back to bed and I'll just remember it in the morning. I always forget. right? How many great ideas have we gone back to sleep and forgotten? So that's one. Two, have a couple of designated spots. John Maxwell says you should have a thinking chair. I don't have a specific thinking chair, but I have about 2 or 3 spots that I know I can go sit down with a notepad, and I can write notes. And I almost always do it at late at night when everybody's asleep. I'm talking 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'll sit down and start writing. And sometimes I did this the other night for our lunch, and my wife got up in the middle of the night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and she said, "Wow, you were wide awake." I was just sitting on the couch, just writing my notes. And it was late. But that's when I can think. There's no distractions. Nobody comes in and interrupts my brain. And so I can just sit there and write and write and write and write. And it just makes me a really happy person. So that's how I be creative. It's a long explanation, but it's all about just being intentional with your quiet time.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting and good what you said. 2 things stuck out to me what you said, John. Number one, I never thought about it from the perspective of when you're listening to music, you allowing their thoughts to become your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my mind, I'm just repeating the song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I only think of you on 2 occasions. That's day and night. You know, I'm not thinking about, whoa, you know, that may be blocking my creative space. And so putting on something that maybe does not have words. I like that, the white space, not filling your brain with a whole bunch of noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may be the issue that many people can't find their own voice because they have everybody else's voice on the inside of them. So it's hard for you to find your own voice when you can't distinguish your voice because there's so many voices speaking to you at one given moment of time.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that you said that my pastor said to me, maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, that keep a notepad by your bed. You never know when God's going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so just write, you know. So I don't keep a notepad. I keep my note app, you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
And so in my phone, man, I've got so many sermon titles and notes that I have not preached yet. But when things come to my mind, I pull out my note app, and I love the note app. That's my favorite app on my phone. Those of you that use Apple, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that are still using Android in 2021, we're still praying for you.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll get there.
And me and Lafayette, we both have Apple, and we can put notepads and share together. So I can see what he's typing.
Exactly. So you can't do that with the Android.
No.
You know, yeah. So having that, man, is so good writing it out. Especially for those of us that are visual learners. I think, like you said, if you don't see it, then you can't be it. And if you can't see it and be it, then there's no way for you to use it. Because if you can't see it in your mind or see it on a physical copy of paper or a whiteboard or something of that nature, it's hard for you to get into the flow of things because you have not organized your thoughts and you have not come up with a strategic plan of how you're going to execute or manifest your plan, your goals, or your dreams. I think your creative process has to do with strategy. I was listening to T.D. Jakes last night. He was preaching a sermon called Dedicated to Destiny. He said something that absolutely blew my mind. He said that he does not plan his life year to year. He plans his life in decades. And I'm like, what? Hold on, wait a minute. I've never heard of that. So he said that if what I'm doing this year doesn't match up with my next decade, then I'm not going to do it. Right. And so a lot of you, in using your creative edge and your creative process, think about what you're doing. Does it align itself with what you want your future to look like the next 5 to 10 years? In your creative process, there may be some things that you need to fine tune because they don't align themselves for where you're going. And so in knowing our creative process, it's one thing to know it, but to have a clear understanding of it, we have to know that as well. And so there's 4 things that I want to say to the audience about understanding your own creative process. And those 4 things are: number 1, preparation. We kind of just went over that. Preparation is the beginning process of creativity. Without preparation, if you prepare to fail, you fail to prepare. It works both ways. And so a lot of times we find ourselves in a place of not reaching our goals or starting and not finishing simply because we are missing the key element of preparation. And so that preparation is just like you said, gathering information, gathering your materials, making sure that in any given moment of my day, is something that can spark my creativity. So I have my notepad ready. I have my phone ready. I have a pencil. And I like what you said about John Maxwell. I have my chair, my thinking chair. I'm gonna get me a thinking chair. I have my office chair, but I never heard of it in the terms of the thinking chair. It is that place that's a dedicated space that is specified that is the place where I go to receive a download for where I'm going that's going to propel me to the next level. And so it's identifying those sources of your inspiration, acquiring knowledge about what you want to get done. In that preparation time, it can often be a internal process, thinking within yourself and generating ideas, as well as external resources that you can use. That all goes into the preparation. But the second thing is incubation, which means that now that I've gathered the information in my mind, I let it almost be, I let those ideas almost get in my mind like a crock pot, right?
Mhm.
I don't put them in the microwave and put it on for 30 seconds and expect my life to come out as a beautiful painted picture like the Sistine Chapel. But instead, I take those ideas and I put them in my mind. I let them marinate in the incubator and let it simmer. Sometimes the best thing that you can do with an idea is not ask what's next. It's just say, stick with it and sit with it. I have this idea. I have these things that I've written down. And maybe right now I don't need to worry about what I'm going to do with the idea next. Just let it sit a while. And when I say sit, it's almost like it's not being stale, but it's in like almost meditation. It's letting the idea stew. It's letting the idea breathe. Giving yourself that time to just sit with the idea and the idea sit with you. And the more that you do that, it becomes part of who you are. Because if you do that, it'll lead you to the next step, which is illumination. And so you have your preparation, you have your incubation, but then you have illumination. That illumination is what we call the aha moment, or oh, the light bulb finally went off. Okay, now I know what I need to do with this idea. I know what to do. Okay, and now I know I can write a song with this. This was going to lead me to my cover page for my book that I'm writing. This is the idea that I needed to execute the business plan. And so I can go in with a strategy when I present this. And so we can move on to the next phase in the building. We can move on to the next phase in our leadership development. And whatever that particular goal or aspiration that is in your mind, there will come a moment. You can be driving in your car, like I just said I was. You can be at your house. You could be talking to your kids at the dinner table. There will come a moment, and it's almost like it comes out of nowhere. That aha moment you're going to have, the illumination where the solution will present itself. And last but not least, in your creative process, now that you have the preparation, you've had the incubation, you have the illumination, then you have the verification. That is the commitment. That is the final piece to your creative process. Following that aha moment, following the moment where the light bulb went off. Now that you got the words written down, the vision is committed. Now that the business plan has been developed, you can go on and communicate that to others. You can start voicing that and presenting that opportunity to those around you that are in support of your vision, or those that can maybe offer some critical critique that will help you um, further your vision, further your strategy, and further your developmental planning in that place of the verification. Um, so now that we have the creative process, we understand what that creative process is. We have those four elements. Now we move to the phase of executing your creative process. And John, I want you to really break this down on, now I know what it is. I know what my process is for me personally. I know what works for me. I understand my process. Now, how do I execute the process?
So those 4 steps were so cool, because if you guys understand, part of the, yes, you can come up with a lot of ideas, but you have to understand how to develop, implement, and integrate those ideas. So the cool part about what Lafayette said between incubation and then the illumination verification stages is the incubation allows your mind to figure out how this would happen, right?
Yeah.
And sort of, should it happen? So that incubation to illumination is that gap is sort of allows your mind to come up with the like integration, right? And so executing, some people are really good at this, some people are not. I just heard something that was talking about, we're all creative. You have some people, though, are visionaries, and some people are integrators. Some people are really good with big pictures, like, I have an idea and it could look like this and it could do this and people would interact this way. You're like, how do you, like Walt Disney type stuff, right? Steve Jobs. But then you have somebody else who often that person may not be the best integrator. They may not be the person who really executes those game plans. So often you need sort of the 1-2 punch. You need a visionary and an integrator. An integrator would be like Steve Wozniak of Apple. Steve Jobs was the visionary. Steve Wozniak was the integrator. Steve Jobs said, we need screens that can have that we can touch, and like iPads and stuff. And everybody's like, why would you want one of those? I would never carry that around, right? And then Wozniak said, I'll figure out how we can do that, right? He was the integrator. Both have to be creative. One creatively comes up with these crazy, amazing thoughts. The other person has to creatively figure out, how can we execute things that have never been done before, right?
Yeah.
Both people are super important. So you may be one or the other. Don't think just because you don't think of iPhones that you are not creative, because you may be somebody who's great at executing a plan. I often come up with ideas and then never execute them. So, you know what I mean? It tells you that you would need that other person. So when executing your process, one thing I do is I always determine, first thing is, does it line up with my goals? That's step one. It's just like the 10-year game plan you talked about. Does it line up with it? And then the second thing is, does this deter from other plans I've already set up? Often we will have game plan for what we were going to do over the next 12 months. And then we get an idea. We're like, that's what I'm going to do. And it becomes this idea of the month club, and you never do any of them, right? You have to eventually stay on track. And it doesn't mean you can't use your ideas, but do you need it now? Does it need to replace what you're currently doing? Is it that big of a deal? Maybe it is. But oftentimes it's not. And you need to stay on track with what you're doing, because that's your game plan for the year. And then sometimes you need to put that on the side, or maybe it's something you can integrate with what you're already doing. And then the third thing is get some thoughts and perspectives from other people. It's really important. Who do you surround yourself with? Are they people that you can bring ideas to? This doesn't mean if somebody doesn't like the idea that you just say, oh, I guess it was a bad idea. No, they just didn't see it. There's a lot of times when a visionary will put out an idea and other people will not see what they're saying. He's the visionary. She's the visionary. But you're just getting perspective. right? There's a lot of times I'll say, I'm thinking about doing something like this. I just came up with an idea personally, for real. I just came up with an idea the day before Lafayette and I had our lunch. And I had some ideas and I threw them out there at lunch. And he said, wow, genius. Well, later on, as I'm, marinating on the thoughts, I was like, I need to reach out to such and such person because they had talked about something in a slightly similar but a different perspective. I bet they would have some ideas for that. So that's on my list. I'm going to reach out to this person to get what he might think because he's sort of done something similar. And you know what I mean? Just some things in leadership that we're talking about that maybe I'll be able to tell all of y'all pretty soon. So get some thoughts and perspectives because other people have great thoughts too. John Maxwell says, when you have a thought, it's one thought. If someone else has a thought, it's one thought. When the two of you combine thoughts, it can often become multitude of thoughts because your thought plus their thought creates new thoughts that would have been thought of. So get their perspectives. And then outside of that is how do you game plan for this? Like, what resources do you need? Do you need money? Do you need knowledge? Time, right? Who can help you with this? And then set your game plan. Like, how are we going to execute it? That's how I do it.
That is so good. And those of you that are listening, I hope you really heard what John was saying. Everything that he said was excellent. But especially about the integration part, because I think a lot of us think that somehow that because you had a great idea, that the execution of your life can be done solely on your own, and it cannot be. The more that you have further open up yourself and broaden yourself to other people's perspectives, like you said, you don't necessarily have to agree, but you can even learn something from someone that you don't necessarily agree with. That's something that I've learned. And so you can get creative ideas and get your creative energy, your creative flow going from other people that you bring into your circle or that you glean from a distance. I thought that was good. And so we now know how to understand our creative process. We know what it is. We know how to execute it. John did an excellent job of explaining that about having a game plan. Do I really need to implement this right now? Who can help? Getting people's thoughts and their perspectives and lining it up with your goals. But last but not least, I want to talk about how to sharpen your creative edge. Because just as a pencil gets dull and needs to be sharpened, so does your creative edge. Your creative edge needs to be sharpened every now and then. And sometimes you have to eliminate some things. Sometimes you have to add some things to your process. Sometimes you just need to pivot, as we talked about last week. You may not have to tear down your model altogether. You may just need to pivot in another direction. And so some of the things that you can do to sharpen your creative edge, and John had already mentioned some of them a few minutes ago, talking about how not even having a TV in your room, that study would suggest, that can inhibit your creative flow, that can inhibit your mind process. And one of the things that I think that can sharpen your creative edge is coming off the internet. And for me, I think that the internet can be a great place to where you can find ideas and stimulate, but sometimes it can be a place of oversaturation, a place where you don't know what's true, what's not, and it can mess up your mind. It can mess up your flow and mess up your frequency to where you can't think straight for yourself, and so your ideas are not coming together as they should. Another thing that you can do to sharpen your creative ideas is make just a list of crazy ideas, things that people are going to say, man, that's just crazy. What are you doing? That doesn't make sense. That's another tool that you can use to sharpen your creative edge. Write down a list of crazy ideas, things that don't make sense to other people, because the reality, some of the biggest hits, some of the most successful people that we glean from, people told them it was crazy. that it didn't make sense. And so your list of quote unquote crazy ideas may be the idea that you need that will propel you to the next level. Another thing that you can do is ask a stranger for their opinion. Get someone that's not so tied personally to you, that doesn't have their feelings in the way, that can be truly objective. It's not worried about hurting your feelings. It's not worried about if you're not going to text them anymore because of something that they said to you. Get someone that's not so personally invested, and so that'll give you a different perspective than you would normally get from someone who is personally tied to you. Another thing that you can do is immerse yourself in a different culture from your own. We talked about diversity really early on in the podcast, about exposing yourself to different cultures can give you an understanding of why and how things work, that you may not know why or how they work because you weren't necessarily exposed to that from your own culture. But it'll give you a creative edge because you'll see things that you've never seen done before. You'll see different processes that you've never seen work before, and it'll give you a spark to your own creative edge. Exercise somewhere new. And I'm not just talking about physically, even though that can be definitely a part of it, but mentally exercise somewhere new. Try a new creative space. Try going for a walk in the park and see, maybe I don't go to Starbucks today and sit down and read my book. Maybe I'll go read in the park somewhere. Just getting yourself in a new atmosphere often can create that or stimulate that creative edge that you need. Take some improvisation classes. Some of us are so stickler that if it's not by the script, how ironic our podcast is called Unscripted, that if it's not by the script, it's not, A, B, C, D, E. It's like we'll lose our minds. It's okay sometimes to get off script. It's okay to improvise sometimes. It's okay to put some things together on the fly. Come out of your normal routine. Come out of your normality. It'll be good for you. Spend some time people watching. I'm a person that likes to watch. I like to listen more than I like to talk. And a lot of times you can learn a lot about an individual. You can learn a lot about how they move and how they are successful in their practices if you just take the time to watch them. Watching people, watching their daily routines, watching how much time they spend doing a certain activity can tell you a lot about a person, and it also can help you in your own creative process. Here's one that's common sense, but we often don't do it. Get advice from smart people, or those that who you aspire to be like. Sometimes we get advice from people that we know we don't want our life to look like theirs, but that's the person that we lend our ear to. And that's the person or the group of people we get counsel from. Some of us get our counseling from Facebook and from people that they don't know what they're talking about. They have no experience. They're not successful in that area that you want to be successful in. Yet we spend a lot of our time getting advice from people who really aren't that intelligent, or we don't aspire to be like them. We don't want our life to look like the picture of their life that looks like. And so get advice from smart people, or people that you want to be or aspire to be like. Another thing is make mindfulness meditation a daily habit. And what I mean, I'm not talking necessarily about yoga, but I'm just talking about taking time in your day to sit and think, sit and stew, sit and marinate. Sit and let your mind work, and let your mind do what it was created to do, and that is to think, and that is to process, that is to create. And so just take some time throughout your day and meditate. Let your mind think on some things that you've been reading about. Meditate on that podcast that you've been listening to, specifically the Unscripted Authentic Leadership podcast. Take some time to think on that note that you wrote about, that idea. And last but not least, sometimes you just need to take a creative break. And notice the verbiage there. I didn't say take a break. I said take a creative break. And so it's okay to step away from your 9 to 5. It's okay to take a lunch break or step away from your daily routine. But even while you're taking a break, be creative in your break. That even though this is some downtime for me, I'm going to be creative in my downtime. That even in my quote unquote downtime, I'm still got my creative juices flowing, and it's still productive for where I'm going, and it matches my creative edge of where I'm trying to be, so I can meet my goals and I can be successful as a leader, as a husband, as a wife, as a student, as a business owner, and so forth. John, do you have anything else as we wrap up about sharpening your creative edge?
Yeah, love the quiet time. Reading is a big one that helps me maintain a sharp, not so much for just creativity, but reading helps me just stay mentally sharp.
Yeah.
It's a real big one, guys, and he'll get into something. I'm sure, we always talk about the read of the month and stuff. Association is huge for me, guys. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So you have to surround yourself with leaders.
Yeah.
Do not surround yourself with people who will rag on your ideas. Sharp people don't rag on your ideas, okay? They may not get them, but they applaud you for coming up, and they, will applaud you as you move forward. Just go, watch Shark Tank if you want. And how many times nobody invests on Shark Tank, but they say, hey, you can do it. That kind of, every now and then there's an exception, right? But that's more of them saying, you don't, the whole Mr. Wonderful, you need to take this out back and shoot it. That's him more. If you ever listen to him talk privately, he feels like he needs to warn somebody when they're about to waste a bunch of money. But he's been wrong, so you never know. But
That's true.
And don't surround yourself with yes men, right? That's the other thing. Just because sometimes people will always say, like, oh, what do you think of this? Looks great, right? That's a yes man. And it's nice to have people who want to applaud you, but have somebody who really wants to give you, like, don't ask for advice if you don't want real advice given back, right? So like, hey, really, what do you think of this? I'm kind of mulling this around, and they'll probably give you some pros and like, well, this may be a concern. Oh, interesting. I'll have to keep that in mind, right? And guys, as Lafayette said, get off the internet. The internet is the internet is full of ideas that already exist. So it's good for research, not creative thinking. God talking to you is good for creative thinking.
Yeah.
He knows what we haven't created yet. The internet doesn't know. That's just what people put. We've told the internet what to say. It doesn't come up with its own ideas. And so, and then the creative break is perfect. It's like fixing writer's block, guys.
Yeah.
When you take a break, your unconscious mind still looks for solutions. That's why you can randomly, when you say, I think I might try to do something in this realm or whatever, and then you're not even thinking of it actively, but your subconscious is, and I said unconscious mind, I meant subconscious mind. But your subconscious continues to look for solutions, and that's why you'll be in the car randomly, and you'll just all of a sudden say, wait, I think I know what to do for that. The subconscious mind is always working, and it never stops.
Absolutely. And one of those creative edges that you can use to sharpen, that John said, was reading. We want to give you the read of the month. Here is The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley, The Millionaire Next Door. And one of the things that we are promoting here on the Unscripted Authentic Leadership podcast, we want you to be whole in every area. And so reading this book, helping you understand the importance of financial literacy, being strategic in your finances, and understanding the worth and the value of what money is really for, what it can do. I think this will be a good tool for you to use. And so the read of the month is The Millionaire Next Door. We definitely want to say thank you to those that have listened to this podcast. And we want to encourage all of our supporters that have been supporting us here at the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast to continue to lend your support. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Unscripted Authentic Leadership. Also, leave us a review on the YouTube channel. Leave us a review on our Facebook page at the Unscripted Authentic Leadership. You can also leave us a review on the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those podcast platforms. Not only review, not only like, comment, and share, but share as well. Tell someone else about this podcast. Those that are inspiring leaders, those who want to be successful, are already successful, but are looking to continue their success and continue to look for a podcast and a platform where they can connect with leaders that are of the same mind as them. And like John said, they're looking for a place where iron is sharpening iron. Unscripted Authentic Leadership is the place where you can find all of those things. And so we thank all of you that have supported and listened. And as always, if you're interested in being a guest, not just for our Rise Up series, but if you're just interested in being a guest on Unscripted Authentic Leadership, we want you to email us. Email us at unscripted authentic leadership at gmail.com. If you're interested in being a guest, email us at unscripted leadership at gmail.com. That's unscripted leadership at gmail.com. It will be right there on the bottom of your screen. Those of you that are listening and may not be watching, it is unscripted leadership, all one, at gmail.com. This has been another episode of the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBron. And as always, we are here as leaders to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next time, God bless you.